I know that co-sleeping is definitely how we evolved from co-sleeping, so in groups. And what I find interesting is that you needed to huddle together like that for physical warmth in the cave, but it also, because of that proximity and interaction, you got more of the bonding hormone oxytocin, so you also experienced the warmth of being part of a tribe. And I think they slept on their side because they would have to be ready for an attack from a predator, so you'd need to keep your dominant arm ready to, grab something. And most likely they slept on their left because they would have been protecting their most vital organs, the heart.
Just thinking then about this bonding chemical and how it comes out when we're in close proximity. A lot of couples, a lot of people, me sometimes as well, sleep in the spare room because I have work commitments. That'll mean that I'm up early, or my partner has work commitments. That means she's up early. But even some of my friends who are in the early stages of parenthood have separated and have a sleep divorce situation. When you talked about the bonding and the oxytocin being released when we're in closer proximity, and obviously at nighttime is when we're literally touching each other, is it conceivable that by separating rooms and by doing a sleep divorce, we're actually eroding our bonding?
I would never do it.
You would never sleep in a different room from your partner?
Never. Apart from maybe if there was a young baby and one person had to go to work and one person didn't. That I get, but that's temporary. And ideally people would find ways to make up for that. I mean, I guess you're in a bit of a love bubble with the oxytocin from the baby at that time, so that is quite neuroprotective. But co-sleeping it's fundamental to our survival. It was physically when we were in the cave, but now I would say emotionally, spiritually, it's fundamental to our survival. I mean,
what do you mean by co-sleeping, just to clarify?
Sleeping together. So mostly in our society, that's as a couple, but a lot of other cultures, the whole family sleeps together.
Why would you never do it? You seemed quite passionate about that.
Because it's so good for you. The bonding, the physical warmth, the skin-to-skin contact, the love, the trust. I'll put up, if somebody's waking up early and I don't have to wake up at that time, I'll even put up with that.
So you'll have less quality sleep.
It won't be less quality sleep. I've worn HRV monitors and shown that even at the time, if my husband would wake up at 5 and I wouldn't wake up at all before 8, and he gave me a kiss goodbye, I got a spike of resilience at that time.
Resilience?
Yeah.
How do you measure that?
So I was using that Finnish technology where you wear the HRV monitor with a gel pad on your chest. And so it's color coded for whether you're doing light exercise, heavy exercise, whether you're stressed, or whether you're recouping resilience. And mostly people recoup resilience overnight, but you could clearly see with people with young children, you could see when they were woken up overnight because it would go into stress. Some people recoup resilience during the day. If, let's say you're like with your partner or your sibling and you're just sitting together and it's super relaxed, or if you love your job, that you can see that happening during the day as well. But because I am so obsessed with my sleep, I wouldn't normally welcome any sleep disturbance. But the power of sleeping together and cuddling all night is so neuroprotective that I would encourage everybody to do it if they can. I also know some people who say, I sleep better if I sleep on my own. But we're not meant to survive on our own. We're meant to survive as part of a tribe. And I think now, since the pandemic, people are more lost and lonely and disconnected than ever. If you've got somebody that you can actually sleep with overnight, I strongly suggest that you do it.
So I want to go in that direction because I'm super compelled by that, the change in the world and the lost, the lonely, the disconnected. But just to pause for a second on this word resilience you're using linked to heart rate variability. You're talking about like a physiological resilience, like the body being more resilient versus the kind of, when we talk about resilience, we say it in more of a psychological context of like, I can withstand greater stress or pressure. But you used a heart rate variability monitor that measures the distance between heartbeats and saw that when your husband gave you a kiss, your heart rate variability increased which means that your body was more physiologically resilient.
It actually measures both because
Okay.
it compares your heart rate variability to your heart rate.
Okay.
So it knows if you're exercising because your heart rate has gone up. But if your heart rate is at like base level, then the change in variability can either mean that you're stressed or you're recouping resilience. If your heart rate is high, then it's obviously physical. But it's a factor of both. So it's not just looking at physical resilience. It is looking when it's in this turquoise zone. That is actually more about recouping psychological resilience. But those two things, you know, they feed into each other. But it can tell the difference because of your heart rate. So obviously, I was asleep, so my heart rate was low.
And you saw what on the monitor when he gave
I
you a
literally
kiss?
saw a spike because does it by every 15 minutes as well. And I saw the highest spike of turquoise at that exact time.
It's funny because my girlfriend about a month ago or 2 months ago, I left the house quite early in the morning, maybe about the similar time, 6 a.m. in the morning, when she was still in bed. And I came up to her and gave her like a big kiss. I basically kissed all around her. This is so soppy. I kissed all around her face and on her nose and just gave her a big hug and stuff. And I walked away, like got in the taxi and left or whatever. And she said to me the same day or the day after, she went, I don't know what happened there, but it unlocked something in me. And, you know, then my girlfriend went on to say she'd had some challenges with her menstrual cycle and she came on her period.
That's amazing.
And
I love that.
she's always right. Like when she says things to me, and she knows this, but I give her a credit. I'm always skeptical because we think differently. She's quite spiritual. Yeah. I'm very like, I need some science. Mm-hmm. And she said that to me and I just thought, a kiss and a hug in the morning couldn't have had any physiological impact on her. But now I'm starting to question whether once again I was wrong.
That's amazing. I mean, you know, some of these things can't necessarily immediately be explained by science, but if you use your intuition, then you have to ask yourself, and I feel like you are coming around to thinking that could be true.
When I'm given a reason, I accept things. If there's even a slither of science that could justify it, then I come around to ideas, but I do need the science. Do you think that men and women are different in terms of their intuition and their ability to, you're smiling, their ability to kind of understand some of these forces that exist in the air? Because my girlfriend seems to be so attuned to feelings and intuition and I'm less so.
Yeah, so let's put it like this. If you had 100 people in a room, 50 men and 50 women, and you asked them to line up in order of height, not all the men would be taller than all the women. In the middle, there'd be a bit of a mixture. And it's like that with the brain and intuition and everything else. So yeah, there's some disparity. So I think most people would agree that it feels like more women are in touch with their intuition than men, but it's absolutely not all women versus all men.
Do you believe women are more in touch with their intuition?
I think they're more open to accepting that it's a thing. And I believe that more men need the science to explain how intuition works.
Interesting. I wondered if there was like a neurological reason for that. I think there'd be more women and men that believed in intuition and those like feelings that are hard to explain. And
that's changed a lot. I mean, I remember when I was teaching at MIT about 7 years ago, and I was teaching the science of intuition. Someone actually stood, and it's all senior leaders in the classroom. It's executive education. Someone stood up and said, "Well, I'm not going to make a really important decision like hire or fire based on my gut feeling, am I?" And he was quite young, and quite a few of the older guys turned around and were like, "That's absolutely how I would make my decision and my most important decisions." But at that time, it was still kind of like, not everybody was really sure that that's like your superpower. But I think people are beginning to understand more that with age and experience and wisdom, you do understand that intuition is actually your strongest, should be your strongest decision-making modality.
What is intuition?
So, because you can't remember everything that you've experienced in your whole life, but, somewhere in the neural architecture and in the gut neurons as well, that information is stored because you have experienced it. So maybe you would say that you understand that wisdom and experience is the product of patterns that you've seen repeating in your life that are conscious to you. Intuition is the lessons that you've picked up along the way that you're not conscious of, but they're still stored in your nervous system. And so the less conscious you are of them, the deeper they're pushed into the nervous system. So there's a process called Hebbian learning, named after the neuroscientist Donald Hebb. And that is, it's basically, neurons that fire together, wire together, but it's that the things that you've learned today, like things that you've learned by speaking with me, that's going to be very front of mind and kind of just in like little pathways that are just kind of connecting up with each other. But stuff that you learned when you were 5, like when you put your hand in a fire and it burnt you and you never ever want to do that again, that's deep down. You're not really conscious of that, but and other things maybe that you don't recall. So we believe that that wisdom gets pushed from the outer cortex into the limbic system, which is the emotional system of the brain, into the brainstem, into the spinal cord, and into the gut neurons. And that's why they sometimes call it gut instinct, because it's that feeling of knowing something but not knowing why you know it. But it's actually to do with the fact that you have wisdom and experience that is, it's embodied in you, but you're not conscious of it necessarily.
It's quite surprising to hear that those memories, that wisdom could be in the gut. People think of, I think I'm certainly someone who always thought that my cognition, my memories and all of the intelligence exists just in my brain.
Your memories and your cognition and your IQ are in your brain, but your intuition is in your brain and your gut.
This sounds super stupid, but I don't care. I should just be honest about my stupidity. Where in my gut? I'm like, I thought that was like my stomach. That's where I put the food.
Yeah. So, you've got your stomach, you've got your small intestine, you've got your large intestine.
Yeah.
You have other organs, your liver, your spleen, your kidneys, and they're all innervated, which means they've all got nerves going into them. So does your heart. So, we could have a similar conversation like this about your heart as well, because your heart only knows how to beat because of the nerves that penetrate it. So, this round brain in here and the spinal cord that goes down the center of your back, that gives rise to all of the neurons that go out to your arms, your legs, all of your organs, your skin, which is your largest organ. And so that's how that works, because every single part of your body has nerve cells or nerve pathways in them. So that's the connection. That brings us back to what I was saying about the brain-body connection. They're intimately connected, and it's a bi-directional thing. They can't exist without each other. And the more you understand that there's that constant feedback going back and forth, the more you can tap into that kind of thing. The more you can know days before you're going to get sick. I bet your girlfriend knows days before she's going to get a cold or flu.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
All the time.
And my clients never know. And as soon as they go on holiday, they're sick the whole week.
Why when they go on holiday?
Because they suppress it to be able to do their job.
And you can suppress illness, or you can just not acknowledge it.
It's not necessarily that they had a cold virus that they suppressed, but it's that their body is, the immune system is being run down by the cortisol. And so as soon as it gets a break, that's when it kind of succumbs. And there was a time after the financial crisis when I had people saying, I've had this cold for like 4 weeks now, or 6 weeks, but everybody's got it. And I was like, I'm sorry, but do you actually think that's normal? Do you think it's normal to have a cold for more than a week? And, then it takes a challenge like that, because also the other thing that happens in, with groupthink, whether it's at work or in your social circle, is that we don't challenge each other enough on those sort of things. So if a friend said, I've had this cold for 6 weeks, I might say, oh, poor you. But if I wouldn't, but someone might. But, it's also about saying, is there something else wrong? Because that's not usual. And for me, that would absolutely lead back to cortisol.
A second ago, we were going to go down the pathway of the looming crisis that you speak about. What is the looming crisis that you're concerned about?
Stephen, I saw this looming at the beginning of the pandemic. It's not looming anymore. We are in crisis. So, all of the health anxiety and the uncertainty and the fear and the loss that we experienced during the pandemic was bad enough. You know, it caused a level of stress that no one who's alive today has experienced before. But we've come out of it, you know, we're relatively, I don't know if I could say back to normal or in the new normal. And we have not paid any attention to the consequences of what happened to us. And when I say us, I mean everyone from the babies that were born at that time that never saw anyone but their immediate family. The teenagers that, interestingly, boys did better than girls because they play video games on the internet, so they stayed connected. You know, the older people that were isolated, the people that like lost loved ones, etc. Like, there's so many things. I could say more things than that. We haven't really acknowledged that that's what happened and what we went through. Most people are not really understanding what's changed for them or what's going on for them at the moment as a result of that, and we certainly haven't made any plan for the future. You know, I'm really into like indigenous wisdom at the moment, and one of the things I've learned about the first Americans is that when they make a big decision for their community, they imagine the impact of that decision 7 generations into the future. We don't even think about 1 generation into the future. We just think about like what's going on right now. We don't even really think about our own future like some of the time. I remember thinking like literally in March of 2020, this is going to be a mental health crisis. Like whatever happens physically. And as time went on, more so, I thought mental health crisis. And then I started to think, okay, what else could it be? And I had time, of course, to indulge in some of the other areas of interest that I couldn't when I was like traveling and working full on. So I, you know, started reading more about spirituality and ancient cultures and stuff. And I thought this could be a spiritual revolution.
When you say spiritual revolution, it's a very big, broad term. What do you mean?
If I look back and you've led a very nice story of my journey since I changed career, is that it started off with that physical piece. You know, for me, where I was working, there was stress, but people were having heart attacks. Then I spent many years working on mental resilience with people. And emotional regulation was part of that. And that became important again in the pandemic because we were in like close quarters with people and, you know, and it was just very different and it was hard and there was homeschooling and working and everything. What I've seen some of the good things that I've seen as a result of the pandemic is that we've definitely appreciated again the importance of our time in nature. So I think most of us felt that, you know, being able to get out and be somewhere green was really important. And because there was like no planes and no traffic, you know, we could see the stars in the sky again. We saw amazing sunsets. People began to appreciate birdsong. And now the studies are showing that time spent in nature actually has a really positive impact on your physical health, your mental health, and your longevity. So, you know, that's one good thing that's come out of it. But are we all still, you know, making time for that, or are we just going back to kind of our old ways? The other things of interest that have come out is that having a purpose that transcends yourself is really important to your mental health particularly, but it will have knock-on effects. So, you know, you could say, well, I do my podcast and I love doing my podcast and I get to meet interesting people and I share that knowledge with others. A lot of that is still to do with self-satisfaction. So having something that doesn't necessarily do anything for you, but gives you purpose in life is really important.
What if the thing you've been missing isn't more sleep, but more connection? Not just with someone else, but with yourself, with presence, with peace. In a noisy world, small moments of closeness, a quiet breath, a shared space, a touch, even just feeling seen, can heal more than we realize. So ask yourself, when did you last feel truly connected? What would it take to feel that again? If this made you pause, even for a second, like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to join this space for real conversations that matter. Let's slow down. Let's reconnect together.